Damn Radio.
Hello, good evening, welcome. I am Samuel Trapp. This is Damn Radio, and you are listening to my program, International Flavor, brought to you live from the real estate of the art studio. Wow. And also brought to you not so live as a podcast later. You can download all of our shows of all the beautiful and wonderful hosts that we have on this channel. And you can listen to us all. And you can go to where? damradio.com/podcast to get there. And you will have all kinds of excitement, all kinds of good things to talk about in that regard, and all kinds of good content to listen to. I suggest you do it as soon as possible. And you can listen. Well, not right now because you're listening to me, of course. And otherwise, I would send you away just like that. Now, you can also go to my lovely little channel called internationalflavor.com and download all of my prior podcasts and listen to them at your leisure. There is an app that you can download, the International Flavor app, and there's also a Damn Radio app that you can download, and you will be notified every time a show is going live. Wanted to give you the opportunity, should you feel the need, you can call into the program and you can speak to me. Isn't that a song from Pink Floyd, Speak to Me? And then the next one on the album was Breathe or something like that, wasn't it? Geez, I wonder if that is true. I do believe that I am correct. But if you wish to speak with me, you have to call in order to do that. And that would be 573-746-8020. And I'd be happy to chat with you about any topic. I'm still grumpy. So if you listen to either of my podcasts yesterday, I was certainly grumpy. And I'm still grumpy. I don't like it. And in fact, if anything, I'm probably more grumpy right now than I was before. I'm just all grumped out. And I don't like it that I am so grumpy because I'm normally not a grumpy person, And but right now, I am an unhappy clam, and I don't like being as grumpy as I am. But I'll tell you why. And it's getting worse because exactly what I feared is exactly what's going down right now. The old Trumpster has destroyed himself as far as a lot of people, what with this neo-nonsense that he is involved in. And it makes me wonder whether Lindsey Graham is just a damn liar or what his problem is. I know he loves his war. I get that. And some people love, the fact that he spends more time in Ukraine than he spends in South Carolina. His constituents at this point don't matter. He is embedded in that position and he will never go away. Another strong case for term limits. And by the way, if you go back and listen to any of my podcasts, there's one a while ago that I spent the entire show on term limits across the board, by the way. And you don't have to listen to my idea. We can create something different, but everybody over, call it GS15, anybody needs to be gone after. You can serve 30 years in the military. That's different. That's war. We want you to be ready for war. But I would even be up for it then. You shouldn't be serving after that anyway. Maybe you could be a consultant or something, but perhaps not in charge anymore. I get that. But you couldn't be a consultant working for the government. And that's every freaking level, especially the judicial branch, Um, Half of these idiots are attorneys anyway. In the legislative branch, far too many. And so they tend to seize power. They know the ins and outs and the scams, and they're very good at them. So they make sure to give themselves 5 or 6 retirements. Old Lindsey Graham is getting a retirement as a colonel. I think he retired a colonel, if I recall, and he retired a colonel, so he gets that. Then he gets his full pay. He'll get a full pension from the from if he's not getting it already. And truthfully, I don't know how those what do you call it, programs work, but I know that in Missouri they can stack their retirements. So if you get a Missouri person who was a judge and he was also a prosecutor, he could be pulling a retirement for being a prosecutor, another one for being a judge, another one for being in some state position, another one for being in the U.S. military. I assume it should be separate if it's state versus federal. I'm okay with that. I get that. You should be able to earn more than one retirement if you want to. But why in the world, if you only, we want to encourage people not to get into the government and die there. I don't want everybody dying in the government. That's not what I want. I don't believe that's what our founders wanted. So anyway, that has nothing to do with what I wanted to talk about today, because I wanted to talk about what's grumping me out still. And Trump is grumping me out. Trump has he already bought this war in Iran. He was the president who was going to bring peace, and he bought. It's his war in Iran. Nobody else's. His war. He let the goon squad talk him into it. Your neocon idiots like Lindsey Graham talk him into it. Even the Marco Rubio types, who's now begging China to help him keep the Straits of Hormuz open. Nonsense. And I have an idea. Let's bomb the crap out of Iran and then beg China to step in and get Iran to listen to us. There's a good plan. Gee, we thought this ahead, didn't we? And why don't we just close the Straits of Hormuz? Why don't we close that entire area over there? Because China, guess what they're doing? China's been doing this, and I told you about this a long time ago. On the other side of where Qatar and Bahrain and all that is, in Iran, on the other side, China has been doing what? China is building a competing system of delivery for tankers of oil, for goods that they put in a port at the before the Straits of Hormuz on Iranian soil, in a port that China is building. China has funded. BRICS has something to do with it. Iran's a new BRICS member a couple of years ago, first day of 2024. They became a member, and they now remember. And in the BRICS, one of my biggest parts of this is the fact that BRICS does not impose conditions upon you, except you can't be at war with other people that are members of the BRICS community, right? So you can't be at war with China like India was. You can't have this dispute, and you have to set it aside, which they did last year before I went to Kazan. That's what they set aside. And Iran was allowed to come in. Now Pakistan wanted to come into BRICS as well, right? Pakistan wasn't allowed in. Why? Because they're in a dispute with India. India is a member of BRICS. And I don't mean a dispute. Sorry, there can be disputes. There cannot be war pending between the two. There cannot be armed conflict between the two. And I shouldn't say cannot, but they try to set aside all of these military things to make sure that people can work together. And so Iran, where was their foreign minister yesterday? Well, I guess it depends on how you look at the clock changes. Their foreign minister met with met with Putin in Moscow. Secret deals, that stuff was not there. I haven't been able to find anything about what they talked about, except Putin saying that these are illegal actions that are taking place on Iran. I'm not so sure that I don't disagree. By the way, Trumpster announced, as usual, his foreign policy by Truth Social post, he announced that the 12-day war between Iran and Israel is over, is what he has said. They've ceased fire. And I have so many articles that I wanted to go through today that of various kinds, but I'm still on a roll yelling about what is going on with the Iran deal. So I spent the day. Not the day. I spent. This is terrible. I lied to you. I didn't spend the day. I spent a couple hours researching nuclear non-proliferation. Okay, because number one, I worked in that sphere, and I was going, this is nonsense. What's going on? That because I gave myself the following parameters. Let's say I set these parameters to say that it would be not incredibly difficult, let's say, for somebody to create a nuclear weapon. How hard would it be if you had somebody that could create a nuclear weapon, somebody to create one? So, by the way, who created their own nuclear weapon and ignored completely non-proliferation? Who? They were not a signatory to it, but who ignored it completely, had no permission from anybody? Oh my God, it was Israel. Holy smokes. We're going to go through that tonight. We're going to go through where that came from. So Israel should have been in the non-proliferation crowd, but they're not. Why? Because they had money. And it wouldn't surprise me, and they're very secretive about how they actually got it, but it wouldn't surprise me if they got it because of somebody in the United States that assisted them in getting it. And then the other thing I want to talk about is whether or not the U.S. keeps all its nuclear weapons in the U.S. Oh my God, they don't. There's a, surprise, surprise, surprise. Well, golly, they don't. Oh my goodness, how in the world did we not know that? They put them where? Oh gee, wherever they want. Okay, here's a plan. Let's put our nuclear weapons in Germany. Let's put them in Brussels. Let's put them in Italy. Let's do it. And nobody can say a word about it. Why? Because we're the U.S. Rules for thee, but not for me. Rules for thee and not for me. That's the way things go in this world, okay? And I'm not saying that Iran should have nuclear weapons, but I read an interesting article today, and I also watched you guys hear me talk about Vladimir Solovyov rather frequently. Not frequently, but I watch him. I try to watch on Sundays. I try to watch Solovyov. And he has a show called Evening with Solovyov. It's a 3-hour program, so it's hard to watch. But I don't sleep very much. And so last night, late, I watched some. And during it, they were talking a lot about Iran, of course, and a lot about what was going on and their opinions on the matter and, gave me some avenues of where to look for more information today and stuff like that. But while I was listening to them, it was pretty comical because there was a guy giving a lecture who's very well versed in Persian policy, and I don't know that he ever read the Which Path to Persia. If you haven't read that yet, again, I suggest you do so. But he was talking about that same thing, and he was talking about non-proliferation and whether or not the disappearance of 400 kilograms or whatever it is, 400 kilograms of enriched uranium that the Iranians took out from under the mountain and took somewhere. Maybe they took it to Russia. Who the hell knows? It's got, that nobody knows where it is. Allegedly, except Netanyahu. He knows where it is, he says. That's what he says. And now we're talking regime change, although nobody was talking regime change. But these nuclear weapons, what would stop? Because there's a partnership between Russia and Iran. There's a partnership between China and Iran. And in fact, it's been suggested once by Pakistan that they provide nuclear weapons or station some of their own on Iran. These things have all been talked about before. We, as a United States country, are seriously playing with nuclear fire here, and it is just wrong what we are doing. Wrong to even be involved. We should not be. Hello, how's the family? I'll tell you again if you want to talk about nuclear war. Give me a call, 573-746-8020, and we'll be happy to chat about nuclear Armageddon. Wouldn't that be exciting? We would have nuclear Armageddon. Maybe they could liquidate the whole region. Did you hear that Al Udeid, a base in Qatar, was bombed by Iran? U.S. Air Force Base. I've been on that base. I've been on there several times when I was in Qatar. It's about 15 kilometers outside of Qatar. I'm sorry, outside of Doha. It's in Qatar. And a pretty cool place. Well, it's a military base. All military bases are reasonably cool, and but they tried to bomb it. Who knows what they did? I asked my brother about it because he and his wife still have friends there. Mine are all Westerners, and we lived on the other end of town, and all these guys were professionals and whatnot. But my brother was associated with a bunch of the military there still because he was a military chopper pilot, and now I was a military interpreter, but I had nothing to do with living over there. He had some contacts and whatnot, and so he still has those contacts, as does his wife, who also worked there. And I knew them when we were located in Qatar in 2015. And they said that they had some photos of it that people had shared through Instagram and through Facebook and through all that some of his wife's friends had sent over some videos, and everything was okay, it seemed. And I was asking him, because I didn't know the answer, but I was asking him if there was a lot of air defense over there, if we had a lot of air defense. And he said, oh yeah, there's plenty of Patriot, plenty of all that stuff that is there in the area. And so there was plenty of defense capability going on. And they had evacuated a bunch, but I asked him, I said, well, didn't they evacuate a bunch of those? He goes, yeah, but where are they going to go? It's not like they stuck everybody in a C5 and carted them off. They took all the boats out, they moved some aircraft around, got them out of the region and whatnot. But the soldiers, where are they going to go? Families and all. He said most of them were, what do you call it? Sheltering in place, as they call it. Shelter in place, meaning, well, if a bomb gets us, sorry. If they nuke us, sorry. If Russia loans them a nuclear weapon, well, real sorry about that. But these things happen. At any rate, Al Udeid was bombed, and he said that nothing hit, but there were things sent over there. And in Russia, they're calling what Trump has done as a very dangerous game. That's what the news. But now I've said, geez, what are they quoting me? It's a dangerous game that we are playing. It's a dangerous game that we allow Israel to play without us or force us into. Trump doesn't let Zelensky play him. He has not let Zelensky play him since he took office. But he was played in under a week by Lindsey Graham and all of his cronies, and by Netanyahu about Iran. In less than a week, he was in a war that we have no business being in, because he listened to the same old flaky, let's start a war people, the same old people that recommend the same old course of action every time something comes up. I was talking about and in fact, I mentioned it yesterday. So I thought I would go back and have a look at it. And there were two. One is half facetious and half not. But I did some research about nuclear weapons and non-proliferation. But I thought you would find this interesting. I made a bit of a joke, and I can't remember if it's on my Russian podcast version or my English podcast version last night. And what I said was, that I cannot remember in my lifetime, except for once, that the U.S. won a war, and it was an attacking Ronald Reagan attacking the island of Grenada. So I did this in Russian, and so I have to translate it while reading it because I don't want to, take the time to do it. But I did it on I found it on my Russian podcast. I did a little Russian live show here about an hour ago, and I'm still rolling from that actually. And what I did was I went and searched, and I said, "Can you tell us what wars the United States has been involved in, or armed incursions, or military actions, or whatever you want to call them? List them for me so I have them all right in front of me, and tell me the result, tell me what happened." And here's what we got. We have where the United States, I was going to say SSA, but that's Соединенные Штаты Америки, where they have acted since 1975. And what they say is where they want to call them successful limited operations. These are not really, and here's the very first one I said. Grenada, 1983. Operation Urgent Fury, a very small country in the Caribbean Sea where the U.S. wanted to remove Marxist government. It was a quick victory without loss and a model for demonstrations of power. Is what Grok told me. Okay. I'm sorry. This is Snapchat. My first time ever using Snapchat. I did that because I was talking to Snapchat in Russian, and then so I gave me all these answers in Russian. But the next one, Panama. This one I remember this too, but it was nonsensical. I don't know that you can call this a victory. This was an arrest. You could have sent some police officers, but it was 1989. Operation Just Cause, and it was the arrest of General Manuel Noriega, and the military targets were achieved quickly and effectively. So he sent in some goons down there, and they arrest a guy, and they drag him back to Florida and arrest him. Okay. Next one. Now, this one I disagree with, but this is what ChatGPT says. Persian Gulf, 1991. Operation Desert Storm. Says the U.S. and its allies ran the troops or the military of Saddam Hussein out of Kuwait. This was one of not very many classic victories for the United States. Outlined detailed targets, international support, and quick realization, 1991. I disagree with that, by the way, because they had to go back in and do it again. So obviously that didn't work out the way they thought. And here's some other ones. Intermittent and long conflicts. Afghanistan, 2001-2021, the longest war in the history of the United States. Started as an answer to 9/11. The Taliban was quickly overrun, and then started partisan war, corruption, and local authorities. And in the end, the United States left, and the Taliban again took power. And many call this a loss. You think? Thanks, Chat GPT. That's a loss. It's a big loss. Okay. The next one, Iraq, 2003 to 2011, 2014, 2017, against it's IGIL, which is I can't remember what they call it in English. The it's the terrorist group, whatever it is. ISIS. This is ISIS. That's right. Against ISIS. And then again, they had to get rid of who? Saddam Hussein. and it was a quick victory, and then started instability, civil war, and ISIS. Again, it was not a clear victory, although they killed many bad actors and had limited successes. Then they mention all of these: Syria, uh, Libya, and Libya is damn it, I can't. I'm having a brain cramp here. And Yemen. So they are the three. They're all right near each other, and it's just stretching my mind. I could point it out on a map to you, but I can't find the word right now. And these are basically only airstrikes. We supported airstrikes with alleged Soyuz, which are partners. Well, partners. What partners? What partners are these that we're talking about? We're talking about Israel and almost every one of those. And who are our partners? They aren't our partners. You call it our allies, but basically, we're doing the work in a lot of those, covering for Israel. Israel starts something, and we always step in. Then we get to the unsuccessful. Okay, unsuccessful Vietnam, of course. That ended in 1975, so that's right at the end of my 50-year period. And the U.S. left, and the communists took victory. This is a historical loss, a defeat. The next one, Somalia. The operation was a loss. In Mogadishu, Black Hawk Down, remember all of that? That was a loss, and the U.S. left. So what do we take from this? You can call only tiny little places like Panama and Grenada a victory, and the other ones are not. And I think we're headed for the same nonsense in Iran if we aren't careful. And I think it's nonsensical watching Lindsey Graham get on Sunday television and tell everybody how he basically talked Trump into doing it. You're going to be the new sheriff in town. People are going to love you. Oh, boy, we need us a victory. We need to show that America can take care of the world. Nobody wants that. You want that. And why? So that Trump can have what? His big, beautiful bill. So Lindsey Graham is still up there pumping his. We need some strong sanctions against that there Russia, because then we can kick the crap out of India. He's making threats against India. India's an ally, for God's sake. He just don't like that they're buying Russian oil. But India's telling people to go take a hike when it comes to that. I've been talking about that for a long time. They're creating some of the largest underground fuel and natural gas and oil transport systems between Russia and India, between Russia and China, and Russia and North Vietnam too. Did I say North Vietnam? I sure did, but I didn't mean to. North Korea. And so there's a train that runs. It's the longest train in the world, and it runs from Russia to North Korea. It takes 8 days. I want to get on it just to get on it. I don't think they'll let me. I don't think they'll let me go into North Korea. Although that basketball player, the orange-haired basketball player, the weirdo, he. Well, I always thought he was a weirdo. Maybe he's not a weirdo. Maybe he's normal. But he always. I don't know what he was doing in North Korea, but he went there, and people talk bad about that. I don't know. I'm babbling now. What do I care about basketball players? I don't even watch basketball. Sometimes I watch college basketball, but that's about it. So last night, I don't know if I got to this or not. I watched. If you haven't watched this video, get on and find it. This is amazing. Russia, in their which system was this? They have come up with a laser air defense system. to shoot down drones. You should see this. It's in the amazing business. I used to tell everybody that when I was in the Army. They'd say, "How'd you do that, Trap?" I'd say, "I'm in the amazing business," and that was it. Um, I'm digressing far too much today. Did you know it's the 50th anniversary of Jaws? And Richard Dreyfuss, who was the Matt Hooper, I think was his name in that show. He is on Amity. He is at Amity and doing what they do. You signing autographs with the old sheriff of town or whatever. That he's doing that. I'm trying to find this video. Here it is. NATO alarmed. Russia deploys next generation air defense system. I am going to copy this here link. I might even play this for you. This was frightening. I'm not going to play it. I'll just tell you what it is. So this one, if you want to go look at it, it's from RIA Novosti, which is Novosti means news, and RIA RIA. You can go find RIA Novosti, and also it is on a YouTube channel called Military Gear. And this military gear, the article I just told you, it was called NATO Alarmed, Russia Deploys Next Generation Air Defense System. And it's telling that you about the, where is it? Come on. I want to know the name of that system. It is, here it is. Well, it's a laser system. Let's put it there. And it is incredible. It shows these lasers. It's like Star Wars. So you remember on the Death Star when the Death Star would shoot out these lasers and take out they had these laser cannons? That's what they exist, friends and neighbors. Now at the end of this article, they say, and it's high heat laser, and they shoot these lasers, and the targeting is incredible. It's AI targeted, and they can shoot down the tiniest of drones. And they are. It's amazing that the trials and the people at the trials were some very, very high-ranking people, arguably. But here was my immediate question, and I don't know enough about this, but here is my immediate question: doesn't a laser not dissipate? Your light does not dissipate. So you step outside and you flip on your porch light. 20 feet outside of there's a circle of light and it dissipates. That light is gone. Those people who buy those huge spotlights that fly over concerts and crap like that, those things, you can see them up in the sky. I always thought, and maybe I don't know, but that laser doesn't dissipate at all. So what if you're shooting at a drone and with high heat to take out a drone, and you take out the drone, but it goes up and it accidentally hits a jet plane or a satellite up in orbit somewhere, and you take out one of Elon Musk's satellites. What are you going to do then? I thought, and maybe I'm wrong, maybe the science is, follow the science, and I'm not following the science. That's possible. But perhaps people they say that China and the U.S. are scrambling to come up with similar systems, and you ought to see this. These things, they have, first of all, they got these little mini, that's the name of it. It's called the Panzer S1, P-A-N-T-S-I, or Panzer, and it is a tracked vehicle or is a wheeled vehicle, and they use it for tracking and for air defense. And so it has now they've started taking them out, and they have tubes on the side, just like they do with the Iskander missiles, right? And so you can take these up, and they can shoot a whole battery of these things, and Solntsepyok and all those ones like that, and they can shoot a tube, and now they have these little mini missiles in there to take out larger drones. And so the war, the battlefield is definitely changing. And if you are interested in that kind of thing, perhaps you should go out and look at this. Russia deploys next-gen air defense system. Okay. What else? We were going to go back to, so that was the state of that, was the war. And that's as far as I wanted to go in the war. Although I did want to go into some Ukraine today. I'm not sure I'm going to get there because I'm kind of on a roll. And we have talked about already the discussion of the wars in the last 50 years. And I wanted to get to the next questions, which had to do with nuclear proliferation. Okay. And my question was the following. There's been talk over the last 6 months, and Russia says it's going to do it. Okay. Russia says the U.S. already does it, like I said earlier in the program. They're going to Russia is planning to take its own nuclear weapons and locate them, instead of on Russia, to locate them on Belarus, right next door. And Lukashenko's all for it, and they, he and Putin are very close, and the U.S. of course is against it. However, the U.S. has nuclear weapons in Brussels. They have nuclear weapons in Italy. Notably, they have nuclear weapons in Turkey. Okay. Now, I read up on this. I knew they were there, and so and I couldn't remember the exact countries that they have them in. But because I kind of wanted to go over the history of it, of nuclear weapons in general, briefly. Okay, to get to let you know where we are right now and how we got here, and some surprising things that you may not know. Okay, and so I went out and I put together a little summary, a quick one. Okay, the nuclear armed states and the origin of when and how long they've had them. United States, first test on July the 16th. 1945. The Soviet Union, now Russia, who still has the same non-proliferation, their first test was August 29, 1949, 4 years later. United Kingdom, 1952. France, 1960. China, 1964. These five then were the original nuclear weapon states recognized under the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, signed July the 1st, 1968. And what they then did was try to get the rest of the world to sign up in non-proliferation. But the rest of the world didn't want to. Not all of them. Some did and then chose not to. We kind of bought them and whatnot. One of them had the test first tested May the 18th, 1974, a peaceful nuclear explosion, but widely seen as weapon development in India. They had a Smiling Buddha test. And then they were not a signatory to, they decided not to sign the non-proliferation treaty. So India was not one. Pakistan, I believe, was a signatory, but Pakistan did their own on May the 19th, 1998, so 24 years later, well after India. So Pakistan was also a non-signatory. North Korea was a signatory, but left in 2003 and tested its first nuclear device on October the 9th of 2006. So notably, at the very bottom of this list, Israel has never admitted to having nuclear weapons, but everybody believes they do have nuclear weapons. But they've never come right out and said it, and they say it's undisclosed. But everybody knows they have it. Whether they were given to them by the U.S. or whatever, they have nuclear weapons. They are believed to have undisclosed since the late 70s, maybe the early 80s. Okay. Now, interestingly, there are several countries who gave up their nuclear weapons. South Africa gave up their nuclear weapons. They developed them in the 80s and dismantled them by 1994, and then they joined the Non-Proliferation Treaty. The other ones, Belarus, Kazakhstan, Ukraine, all were places where the Soviet Union had placed arsenals, but Russia took them back by 1996 as part of the Budapest Memorandum. And this is where Ukraine always gets twisted and says, we had security guarantees of that the U.S. had to provide us security in a nuclear umbrella. No, you were supposed to be under the nuclear umbrella of the former Soviet Union, just like everybody else. But no, you didn't want that. And so it's a weird deal. I suppose I've read it, but you can interpret if you want to, but you're taking a pretty broad view that the U.S. only is supposed to provide you some sort of guarantee against Russia. Nobody at that time at all anticipated the need for them to protect themselves against Russia. Okay. So now we're going to talk about U.S. objections and reactions to all the people above getting those weapons, because I wanted to see where that came from. Because I knew that they hadn't said a damn thing about Israel. Okay, the U.S. consistently, except Israel, opposes proliferation. Early proposals included the Baruch Plan in 1946 that called for international control. But only the U.S. had nuclear weapons at that time. Isn't that just like us? We get the highest technology and then go, wow, geez, now we got to regulate it. Like my brother was talking about on the show last week, where we've now actually passed something to regulate cryptocurrency. And we're trying to regulate it for the rest of the world. We're pretty creative when it comes to that, right? And of course, the rest of the world, we just tell them, oh, no, trust us. We'd never screw you over. Geez, we'd never bomb you, Iran. You should have signed this non-proliferation deal, right? Let us protect you. We will protect you, right? Anyway, they wanted international control. The next one was called Atoms for Peace in 1953. Nobody agreed to that either. And then they founded the IAEA, but I forget when that was. I want to say the 70s when India got involved. When India tested in 1974, the U.S. updated export controls and tightened nuclear cooperation through acts like the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Act of 1978, where we tried to regulate the rest of the world. And we tightened what documents were allowed to leave the country, what education people were allowed to have, that kind of thing. The U.S. imposed sanctions after nuclear tests by both India and Pakistan in 1998. So, see, they didn't get permission from us. So what did we do? We sanctioned them. They chose to leave the treaty and develop their weapons, and so we sanctioned them. That's it. We sanctioned them. In the case of North Korea, the U.S. pursued not sanctions, diplomatic pressure, and they called on the UN to put in sanctions, and there were 6-party talks, but they couldn't stop the first tests by Korea in 2006. Notably silent in all of this. Nobody knows how Israel became a nuclear power. Nobody knows. And it's a question mark. It says, when have they had it? Okay. So the U.S. 1945, they recognized the Non-Proliferation Treaty. Russia, 1949, they recognized the treaty. UK, 1952, they recognized. France, 1960, they also recognized. And China, 1964, also recognizes. India is not. So India could give away, they are not limited in who they can provide nuclear weapons to or in testing in any way. Neither is Pakistan, neither is North Korea. And by the way, neither is Israel. Israel, even though it has they don't have sanctions. They didn't get sanctions like India, didn't get sanctions like Pakistan, didn't get sanctions like North Korea, the other three that that do have nuclear weapons. But Israel is a non-signatory, no sanctions, not even any diplomatic pressure, just official silence by everybody. If you're Israel, you're God's chosen by God, so everything is just perfect for you, right? Everything is good. So the news is all up in arms and is telling us about the 400 kilograms of enriched uranium that disappeared from underground in Iran, right? Because Trump's and there's so many articles that are saying that they were completely unsuccessful in these bombings of the nuclear facilities, and they're showing them later. People are going, even like the Wall Street Journal or something's going, yeah, very successful, real nice. That was successful. If that's your bunker buster, boy, you better get a new one. And people are making fun of him internationally for caving to the Lindsey Graham element, and he never should have anyway. But of course he did. He caved just like everybody else does, and now his war, all his own, that he gets to call his war. And but nobody's talking about Ukraine anymore, so he can still say that ain't his war. That's Biden's war. That's not his. But he's got his own bigger, badder war where we're going to put those bad boys in their place. So, and he can conduct that war by Truth Social. Truth Social is a good way to conduct a war, isn't it? It's what better way to conduct foreign policy than putting a post on Truth Social? That's obviously the best way to conduct your foreign policy. So I was wanting to do a little bit of research about whether or not you could create your own nuclear weapon in your backyard. So, and I asked, hey Google, to give me some information on creating my own nuclear weapon. Oh, I just said it again, and it's giving me more information. Sorry, hey Google, I didn't mean to turn you on just now. Shh. Oh, but look at this. It appears there might be a misunderstanding. Oh, no, I'm not trying to create a nuclear weapon. Now the FBI will show up at my house and drag me away for trying to create a nuclear weapon or trying to find stuff to create a new weapon. But here's the scoop. I went and I had a look. I asked this question. Does the United States have nuclear weapons in Europe, and where? Yes, it does. The U.S. keeps 100 B-61 nuclear gravity bombs. That means bombs that just drop. You're not firing them out of a missile. You just drop them like we did on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. They just fall and explode. Good stuff. The U.S. is the only people that have done it, but there you go. They are stored at air bases in countries like, they don't give you a full list, but like Belgium, Germany, Italy, the Netherlands, and Turkey. How do you like that? We're giving Germany nuclear weapons. We're giving Italy nuclear weapons. And what do you need a nuclear weapon in the Netherlands for? What in the world are we protecting there? Maybe the Netherlands is really Greenland. Curious. I wonder. These aren't U.S. bases alone. They also share NATO sites. Isn't that strange? We now are giving the technology and how to deliver them to other NATO countries. Isn't that proliferation, friends and neighbors? I don't know. They are shared NATO sites, and the host country's aircraft members are trained to deliver these nuclear weapons if needed. And what they call it on the American side, we say that is all part of extended deterrence, meant to reassure our allies and deter our adversaries. But God forbid they try to do something, right? So I asked a further question. Who does Russia or China give their weapons to? Because Russia, I had heard, had not yet. All they've done is talk about it, but they don't want to give Belarus the rights, or they don't want to share the nuclear weapon. They would want to run them themselves. Not like the US. We go over to Germany, start a base, and go, geez, we don't want to be here. How about you take our nuclear weapons and drop them on Iran when we want you to? Just like Israel. We'll treat you like Israel. Only we won't, because Israel runs us and not the other way around. So I asked that question, and I got the response that nope, neither Russia nor China shares their weapons with allies the way the U.S. does through NATO, right? Russia keeps full control of its own arsenal, even though it has close ties with countries like Belarus. Russia said it was moving tactical nukes into Belarus, but they would stay under the command of Russian officers. China doesn't share at all. So don't expect China to be given nuclear weapons to Iran, although they are connected in a defense treaty between those three countries. Let's see, what else did I find out? Oh, I've got a list that came up on nuclear sharing. Russia, U.S., and China. U.S. gives up control, trains host nations, and has extended deterrence. And nope, Russia doesn't share any of that, and neither does China. No sharing, and only on their own nation. And so, when I asked about building your own warhead in your backyard, it's extremely difficult, they say. Even skilled nuclear scientists could face major hurdles. Well, if that's the case, why is Israel targeting them? Why is Israel killing people who have no choice? And they're targeting people, not programs. Okay. Even if you have the material, designing a reliable implosion device requires precision engineering, tamper-resistant, tamper-proof materials, high explosive lensing that you can't really get without top lab. And you have to have neutron sources. They're highly specialized, hidden tech. Okay, it's not they're not just sharing it. Well, but then how in the world did Israel get it? Curious. Where did they get uranium from enriched? I wonder if any of the files that Trump disclosed, remember he was letting the Kennedy stuff out and all these other secretive documents. I wonder if there's anything related to this. I don't know, but that's an interesting question. I might have to look into that. Anyway, in summary, you can't build one in your backyard. So me trying is probably not going to be too fruitful for me, and I won't be able to get on the list of countries as a separate entity, buying myself an island and putting a nuclear weapon on it. Well, in that case, why in the world are there so many shows where James Bond is saving the world by people with a nuclear bomb in his suitcase? They make it sound so easy. In these movies, everybody's got a suitcase and a few nuclear warheads. That must be how Israel got them, yes? You wonder how many bombs they have, and they must get the U.S. to deter Iran. We need to beat the snot out of those Iranians, but we don't know why. The IAEA, which we created, means nothing, if they say, they don't have it. Anyway, I don't know. I'm almost tired of that. In fact, I am tired of that topic. I'm going to move on. And guess where I'm going to go? I'm going to go to a jar of tomatoes that saved a Ukrainian man from forced mobilization. That's a good video, too. It's on Telegram. If you get a chance to go look at it, just look it up. Jar of tomatoes saves Ukrainian man in your Telegram. So conscription officers were trying to drag a man into the van. You got to see him. He's got no shoes on. I shouldn't laugh. I don't mean to. But a Ukrainian man managed to escape forced conscription. And these videos are all over, and they go viral pretty frequently because they beat the snot out of these people. And then throw them in a van, cart them off, throw a uniform on them, and send them off to die. Ukrainian man escaped, blah, 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 blah. He was in the city of Lutsk after neighbors hurled a jar of pickled tomatoes from a nearby building at the military recruiters, according to new video highlighting Kiev's increasingly harsh mobilization efforts. It is unclear when they... Damn it. Okay. It is unclear when the video was filmed, but it is the latest in a wave of viral clips showing resistance to the military draft efforts. The footage circulated on Ukraine and Russian Telegram channels on Sunday showed a barefoot man resisting 4 local draft officers from Ukraine's territorial center of recruitment as they attempted to push him into the minivan. Let's see if I can find the link for you, and because it is pretty comical. Where is it? Nope, it won't let me copy the link. It'll let me download it, but it won't let me copy the link. So he's going, please take a picture of me. My name is Denis Kachuk. Born in 1997, the man can be heard shouting while clinging to the door. Moments later, a glass jar filled with pickled tomatoes flies from above and shatters beside him, prompting the person filming to yell at the officers, "Oh, let him go already. They want to kill me," said the man. "They're trying to kill me." He eventually managed to break free and run off, and the draft officers abandoned the effort and drive away. This incident comes amid rising frustration over Kiev's mobilization. According to lawmaker Roman Kostenka, fewer than 1 in 4 recruits enlists voluntarily, with most entering service through what he describes as brutal compulsory conscription. Another Ukrainian MP, Yuri Komolchuk, said conscription officers are under orders to bring in 12 new recruits per day. I've told you about that before. And they use very aggressive tactics to try to meet these quotas, including luring food couriers with fake delivery requests. So you order your food, order a pizza, some guy delivers it, and you arrest him, stuff him in a van, ship him off. Videos have repeatedly surfaced showing Ukrainian officials using force to detain men in public areas in what has become known locally as busification, a term which refers to forcibly loading recruits in unmarked vans. Moscow accuses Kiev of waging a war to the last Ukrainian, just like many in the West do. And Vladimir Putin has said that Ukraine's recruitment officers are beating people like dogs on the street. Isn't that terrible? There was a Ukrainian recruitment officer not long ago. I may have shared this with you before. That got blown up in his van. He was reportedly killed in a car in Odessa on Friday. Investigators suspect the blast was intentional. May have been triggered remotely. Isn't that crazy? That's enough on that. That's a sad topic. They're sending these people off to die. And Germany is trying to get the U.S. to give them a troop withdrawal roadmap. When are these soldiers leaving Germany? They've been here since World War II. Let's see. And the rest of NATO's going crazy. Well, we want them to stay in Germany. Yeah, they don't want them anywhere else, but let's leave them in Germany. Germany wants some of that high dollar land back that the U.S. is holding in all these military bases. German Defense Minister Boris Pistorius keeps asking U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth to provide the roadmap for U.S. troop withdrawals from Europe. said the Financial Times, said the anonymous sources are saying. Since taking office, Trump has repeatedly accused NATO members of failing to share the burden of defense spending. He also suggests the U.S. should reduce its military footprint. In a piece on Monday, Financial Times reported that ahead of the NATO summit in The Hague, slated for June 24, European leaders have been preoccupied with Washington's troop drawdown plans. According to the outlet, Pistorius keeps pushing Hegseth to provide a roadmap for the U.S. to pull out of Europe. We all have trauma from Afghanistan. He says German attempts, however, reportedly come in for criticism from other NATO members that are trying to unwittingly boost Trump's case for withdrawal. Another source cites the publication described the schizophrenic dilemma faced by European leaders engaged with Americans like hell to keep them as close as possible, while at the same time preparing as fast as we can for them to walk away. Says Giuseppe Spadafora, an analyst at the EU Institute for Security, said that European allies in NATO may fear that they could set in motion the very outcome they are seeking to avoid. They don't want the U.S. gone. They want the U.S. paying for their defense. And we've been paying for their defense for too long. And what do we get out of it? In all seriousness, Lindsey Graham, he gets a lot out of it. Marco Rubio will get a lot out of it. Carlo Massala, professor of international politics at Bundeswehr University in Munich, concluded that at present, all the Europeans are looking at the U.S. like a rabbit looks at the snake, hoping the snake won't bite them. Isn't that a good Trumpism? We're worried about that. It is expected this troop withdrawal is in the coming months, is what they say. This article came out a little while ago, but it says we're supposed to know within a couple of months. Rumors about the pullout have been circulating ever since NBC reported in April that the U.S. was considering withdrawing 10,000 troops from Eastern Europe. Trump later confirmed that he's considering this, but nobody's ever done anything about it. The cost of replacing U.S. equipment and personnel. Note these numbers, friends and neighbors, because if they don't withdraw, guess who's still footing the bill? The cost of replacing U.S. equipment and personnel following withdrawal would amount to around $1 trillion, Politico reported early in May, citing a report by the International Institute for Strategic Studies. As of early 2025, there are nearly 84,000 U.S. troops stationed in Europe, largest concentrations in Germany and Poland, with smaller deployments in Romania, Estonia, Lithuania at the U.S. European Command. You sir. Isn't that crazy? I've been on a roll tonight. Sorry about that. Feel like I've been yelling. Sorry if I'm screaming at you. I don't mean to be, but there you have it. What else did we have here? Trump. So Medvedev said some pretty interesting things, did Medvedev, former president of Russia. Let's see. U.S. President Trump has cautioned the deputy chairman of Russia's Security Council, Dmitry Medvedev, against casually talking about nuclear weapons. Oh, as if Trump never casually talks on Truth Social. The comment came after the former Russian president suggested that several unnamed countries were prepared to provide Iran with weapons of mass destruction. Nuclear weapons. He's saying that about Pakistan, notably, or North Korea. On June 22nd, the U.S. bombed Iran's nuclear facility, blah, blah, blah. In a post on his own Truth Social platform Monday, Trump wrote, "Did I hear former President Medvedev from Russia casually throwing around the word nuclear and saying that he and other countries would supply nuclear warheads to Iran?" Well, of course it's casual. I mean, heck, we have to throw it out. Is it not casual to throw it out on Truth Social? I feel like the U.S. head of state asked for immediate confirmation of or rebuttal insisting that the N-word should not be treated so casually. Trump went on to boast about America's superior military capabilities, air and seaborne, citing a weekend bombardment of Iran as proof. In a series of X posts Sunday, Medvedev complained that a number of countries are ready to directly supply Iran with their own warheads. Like I said, when I was listening to Solovyov last night, he said the same thing. What would stop India, for example, from giving Iran weapons? India isn't a signatory to non-proliferation. They're still under sanctions for having their own nuclear weapons. Pakistan isn't on non-proliferation. They're still under sanctions too. We got sanctions everywhere. And by the way, these sanctions aren't doing anybody the harm that we think they are. And by the way, they're avoiding them through what? Friends and neighbors, where are we going to go back? Back to school all over again? BRICS. Okay? And some people believe that BRICS is going to just be on the trash heap of history, was one quote I heard. I tend to disagree. I think it is expanding, and it is stuff like this, sanctions, blowing up other countries, that is going to make it go faster and faster. And the U.S. debt, like I said yesterday, the U.S. is ever more desperate to keep its control. And how do you keep control if you're Lindsey Graham? More war. And you convince Trump that he's the new sheriff in town. You're the new sheriff. Idiocy. Remember that show, Idiocracy? I was going to download that and watch it again to get some focus on our country. The Russian official stopped short of naming the nations, but suggested the American bombardment had done nothing to stop the enrichment of nuclear material and the future production of nuclear weapons by Tehran. Medvedev asserted that Iran's leadership will emerge even stronger in light of Washington's actions. I'm not sure I agree with that, but I don't agree with what Israel is forcing us to do. I do not agree with that. With the vast majority of countries around the world opposing the actions of Israel and the United States, President Trump can forget about the Nobel Peace Prize, as he has now pushed the U.S. into yet another war. On Monday night, Medvedev responded to Trump, stressing that Russia has no intention of supplying nuclear weapons to Iran because, unlike Israel, we are parties to the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty. However, the ex-president added that other countries might, and that's what was said. So now he's getting on X and responding. He urged Washington to refrain from arguing over who has more nukes, emphasizing that the New START arms control treaty, which was signed by Moscow and Washington on Medvedev's watch, is still in force. The question is, what comes next? Speaking during a meeting in Moscow on Monday with Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi, Russian President Putin characterized the U.S. attack on Iran as an unprovoked aggression, a breach of international law for which there can be no justification. He said something really funny that I wrote down about world orders. Where are my notes? And I'm going to try to remember it without having to find my notebook. But I was watching him earlier today, and I had to write this down real quick. Of what Putin had said, because I actually had to look up the word. So there's a lot of words that sound the same when they say them, but they don't quite mean the same thing. And so he did a play on words while he was sitting there talking about a new world order, because somebody was interviewing him, and he was at this economic forum in St. Petersburg, and they were interviewing him, and it was really cool. I mean, I love listening to those things in Russian because, boy, you learn a lot watching that stuff. And I wish I could have gone to St. Petersburg for that thing. I might have to pony up and figure out a way to get over the old Ruskies and see what they can do. But that conference is, I think it's over now, or it's got one more day. But it was really cool, this economic forum. And what he said was, somebody said, Are Russia and China trying to form a new world order to get rid of? It wasn't actually in the question, but are they forming a new world order basically to get rid of the old one? And what he said was, we are not forming a new world order. We are formalizing it, meaning the new world order already exists and people are starting to take notice. And as he spoke further, it was because of things like people like Iran. Iran and Russia trade in the Iranian currency, which I forget what it is, and the ruble. India trades with Russia with the rupee and the ruble. China trades with Russia with the yuan and the ruble. Brazil trades with the, I forget their peso, I think, is what they are trading with, and they take the ruble. So there are more and more and more countries that are starting to not avoid the dollar, but not use it. And most of them have already signed up for things like they haven't come up with a BRICS pay system yet. It was allegedly on the calendar, and I really, I did not get, and the time is over already. Yesterday was the last day. Get my visa permission to try to go to Brazil for the BRICS conference coming up. And so I didn't get that, and so I won't be there, but I will be following it when their new announcements come out, which will be next week, first week of July. And it's only 2-3 days anyway. But I was very eager to get there, and I didn't figure it out. But I want to see what they have done as far as a BRICS pay or creating a system that will allow, because they're already doing it, their national banks are avoiding the dollar by accepting the ruble, and then their trade balances are shifting, and all the trade balances are shifting away from the dollar, away from the U.S. Somebody said something on a show a couple of weeks ago that China was really going to feel it if they lost to the U.S. I don't think so, not so much anymore. Because they have been limiting, and bigger still. So they're limiting the amount of trade and making alternatives. And they're investing their money. They used to invest all their money in what? U.S. debt. Now what are they investing it in? Other countries. Like I told you earlier today, the Belt and Road, instead of buying over whatever year, and they're drawing money out. They're selling U.S. debt. Used to be the trade surplus was so huge, they would get the U.S. debt. Now they're selling U.S. debt, getting rid of it, which is hurting us horribly. Okay, and it's also making the fact that we have so much U.S. debt worse and worse, and a bigger and bigger scary deal that it is out there, right? So the fact that China, instead of buying more U.S. debt, is now unloading about $60 billion in U.S. debt each and every quarter, that they're getting rid of it. Their amount, you should see the graph that I printed out of this several months ago, but it's still it is dramatic how much they have sold. Japan is doing the same thing, and they're an ally. Everybody who owns huge amounts of debt. Remember the oil dollar, that the U.S. controlled the oil dollar? Same scenario. So everything that is focused on the dollar and on U.S. debt is now sliding. Saudi Arabia is accepting payment from these other countries in their currency. They aren't paying up in the oil dollar, and they're not allowing the U.S. to do the oil dollar, not anywhere near as often in trade for what they get. So take the oil and give us the oil dollar. We are on a precipice, and people don't realize it. It might take us a while. It might be we're inching up, and we've got a football field to go. that we're not even at a hashtag, and it'll take a long time because we're still a powerful country, and there may be ways out of it, but you can't deny the fact that the debt is being sold. You can't deny the fact that the dollar is not as strong, and people are, if they use their own currency in their own country, and they can start to use their own currency outside their country, what happens? Their own currency becomes stronger. That's why the US dollar has been so artificially inflated over the last 100 years. Well, 70, whatever it is. And since Bretton Woods. At 80, call it. And but at any rate, that tale of woe is coming. that is coming. And the threats to more tariffs, the threats to, Joe, we're going to blow up Iran, and we're going to tell the world what to do. You're the new sheriff, Donald Trump. Lindsey Graham. Yeah, you're an idiot, is what you are. And this is not what people well, it is what they expect, unfortunately, from the United States. Business as usual, same old crap. And the next thing is Lindsey Graham he's still pushing China, India, Russia sanctions. China, India, Russia sanctions, because China, India, Russia buying all this fuel from each other is only going to speed it up. Okay? It's as soon as, let's say this stupid sanctions bill actually works. Let's say, or it doesn't work, but gets put into place. Do you think that's going to stop what they're doing? Lindsey Graham cracker? Huh? It will not stop it. You need yourself a bunch of new experts. What you're going to do is increase the run away from the dollar. You're going to make larger paths to get around these sanctions, is what you're going to do. That is exactly what's going to happen. I apologize if I've been yelling at you tonight. I don't mean to be, but because I keep seeing the meter. Meter might be going too high. Sorry about that. And I might have been on a tear there, yelling for a few. Very sorry about that. But usually it's pretty, it's pretty structured, and I don't yell all that much. I just get a little jazzed up sometime. Now let's go back to NATO. Okay, in NATO, U.S. President Trump has demanded that they, in each bloc, all the nations in the bloc, invest 5% of their GDP in their militaries. Now, when he was president before, he was demanding 3%, and not many of them did it. So we're going to go through this. NATO members have agreed to delay. Yes, they have. They've agreed to delay the timeline for raising defense spending to the level sought by U.S. President Trump. Due to Spain's opposition. Spain says, we're not interested in that. We don't give a crap. Who's going to attack Spain? Nobody. So we don't want to spend money on that. And by the way, why isn't the U.S. going to pay? The U.S. has always paid. Mark Rutte, Secretary General of the U.S.-led bloc, has aimed to secure approval this week for a declaration increasing defense spending target from the current 2% of GDP to 3.5%. with an additional 1.5 allocated to broader security initiatives. That means Ukraine. And they say bridge renovations to support troop movements in Ukraine. Citing source familiar with this matter, Reuters said the draft deadline was pushed back from 2032 to 2035. And the wording was changed from "we commit" to "allies commit" after Spanish Prime Minister Sanchez publicly declined to endorse the proposal. Spain is among NATO's neighbors not even meeting the 2% threshold. On Sunday, Sanchez announced that Spain would not adhere to the bloc's new objective and instead would raise military spending to 2.1% of GDP. Nothing more, nothing less. We fully respect the legitimate desire of other countries to increase their defense investment, but we won't do it, said Sanchez on national television. Remarks were reportedly made after amendments to the draft declaration had been finalized. Trump on Friday criticized Spain as notorious for failing to meet NATO's existing targets and argued that the U.S., unlike other members, should not be required to hit the 5% mark due to its historically high defense expenditures. Politico reported that the agenda for the NATO Leaders Summit in Hague had been reduced. I already reported that last week, blah, 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 G7. We don't care about that. We already talked about it. See if there's any. There's still a whole bunch of these that I wanted to go to. Trump saying that they agreed to a ceasefire. Where was this on? Probably in his U.S. Trump claimed Monday evening, hours after Iran fired missiles at U.S. military bases in Qatar. It has been fully agreed by and between Israel and Iran that there will be a complete and total ceasefire 6 hours from now when Israel and Iran have wound down and completed their in-progress final missions for 12 hours, at which point the war will be considered ended, Trump said on Truth Social. Officially, Iran will start the ceasefire upon the 12th hour. Israel will start the ceasefire, and on the 24th hour, the official end of the 12-day war will be saluted by the world. Really? During each ceasefire, the other side will remain peaceful and respectful, on the assumption that everything works as it should, which it will, he says. I would like to congratulate both countries, Israel and Iran, on having stamina, courage, and intelligence to end what should be called the 12-day war. It's very important to him that he gets to coin all of these things. You know, I get to name stuff. It's me. Neither Tehran nor West Jerusalem has reacted to this announcement. I didn't see anything new on this either. Unconfirmed, but it might be there by now. I don't know. Where'd it go? Damn it. Things are scrolling just out of my reach. Let's see. At this very moment, an Iranian official told CNN that Tehran has not received any ceasefire proposal and would view Trump's remarks as a deception. At this very moment, the enemy is committing aggression against Iran, and Iran is on the verge of intensifying its retaliatory strikes, with no ear to listen to the lies of its enemies. Reuters, however, cited a senior Iranian official who confirmed that Tehran had agreed. So we don't know the answer to that question, as they might call it. So did I tell you yesterday? I pulled this back up again because I don't remember that I did it yesterday, but I can't stand even looking at this guy, Benjamin Netanyahu. I am not a fan, and I read his book. So go read his book, and maybe you won't be a fan either. Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu has claimed he has interesting intel on the location of Iran's enriched uranium. He made the remark following airstrikes at the facilities. Speaking to reporters, Netanyahu confirmed that Israel is aware of the new location of Iran's 400 kilograms of 60% enriched uranium, but preferred to give no further detail. We've been following that very closely. It's an important component of a nuclear program. But it isn't the only component. It isn't a sufficient component, but it's an important component. Sounds like green eggs and ham. And we have interesting intel on that, which you will excuse me if I don't share with you. Well, you don't seem to be a very sharing person with your nuclear technology that you're not supposed to have. Somebody gave it to you. Let's say. Where else? I think I might have actually given you that quote yesterday. Here's a funny one. Fake child bride wedding triggers a probe at Disneyland in Paris. 2 people are being questioned by French police after Disneyland Paris staff raised concerns about a suspected fake wedding ceremony involving a 9-year-old Ukrainian girl. The incident was first reported by Le Parisien, which said the man rented the Disneyland Paris complex several weeks earlier for a private event costing €130, about $150,000. The booking was scheduled outside regular park hours, with the alleged ceremony taking place early Saturday morning. Staff and security reportedly raised the alarm when they noticed that a girl dressed as a bride appeared to be underage. Police were called to the scene. The prosecutor's office said that the marriage was staged. So it wasn't a wedding, but a stage wedding film with around 100 extras. They privatized Disneyland Paris, pretending it was a real wedding. 4 people were taken into custody, with 2 remaining under questioning on Saturday on suspicion of fraud and money laundering. Among them was a 22-year-old man believed to be British who allegedly posed as the groom and organized the event. A 24-year-old woman from Latvia is also being questioned. The investigations, including a medical examination of the minor girl, a Ukrainian national, revealed that she had not been subject to any violence or coercive acts and that the event turned out to be a setup, with the guests themselves as extras. The child's 41-year-old mother and 55-year-old man were questioned also. One of the extras, hired to attend what she believed was a wedding, told France Interradio, "I saw the panic of the Disney people. Then through the window I saw a small girl with a wedding dress on. A woman was carrying her in her arms, and that's when I understood that the child was very young." Disneyland Paris said, "A private event booked at our destination was canceled by our staff after irregularities were identified. Police were called and arrived quickly. The reason for staging the wedding and the child's exact role in the event remain unclear." The park said it was cooperating with authorities. Isn't that crazy? Why in the world would... Maybe it's for a movie. Maybe we'll see something in a movie. And finally, body swap records contradict Kiev's claim. Evidence shared with RT contradicts a Ukrainian cabinet minister's claim that remains of Russian soldiers were returned to Kiev in a recent exchange. Officials in Kiev have accused Moscow of mishandling the remains of Ukrainian troops and including unrelated bodies. The latest exchange saw Moscow hand over 6,060 sets of remains in return for 78. Kiev maintains Russia's battlefield losses are higher than Ukraine's. Ukraine Interior Minister Igor Klimenko said that the criticism when a social media post accused Moscow of limitless cynicism. He said one particular body bag contained a deceased Russian soldier. However, Russian records regarding the same transfer do not match. Klimenko claimed that the corpse handed over was dressed in a Russian military uniform. How do you like that? In April, Ukrainian leader Zelensky said that in an interview that Ukraine had lost up to 100,000 troops, but that Russia had lost over 1 million. I don't believe those numbers. Following this month's exchange, Russia says it still holds the bodies of approximately 3,000 Ukrainian soldiers, which it wishes to return. Well, friends and neighbors, we're going to wrap it up. I still have several tabs and lots of stories and a decent amount of AI crap to go through, but we're not going to do that because we are winding down. I am Samuel Trapp. This is Damn Radio, and I appreciate you listening to damnradio.com/live all the time. There's good music playing out there, and I like it. Coming up, we are going to have Lighthouse, Sniffing the Tears. Oh, I love Sniffing the Tears. Cyndi Lauper, I can't even see that. Richie Sambora, never heard of it. Alice in Chains and Sugar Ray. There's 6 next songs, all good stuff. Maynard. I appreciate you joining the show. What I think you should do is go to internationalflavor.com and listen to all the replays. or you can go to damradio.com/podcast and also listen to all the great shows and other wonderful hosts out there and all the good programs which are stored. I very much appreciate each and every one of you, and I hope that all goes well in your lives. I will be back tomorrow at 9 p.m. Chicago. Bye bye.